Here is how to be able to make a gradient fill in InDesign. Now if you remember, to be able to make it in Photoshop, all I have to do is make a document, say 9 by 12, this is perfect. Load up my foreground and background colors. So I'm going to have this particular color, I'm going to type in kind of a pine green, an off green a little bit, and then I'm going to probably come back in and I'm going to come down here and copy that color down here, go to my foreground, or flip this, paste that color in, and then I'm going to edit this by coming in with a color that's about half what that other one was. And now that I have my light foreground to darker background, go get the gradient tool, come up in here and get the radial fill button. Make sure this is set up here for the top left for my two colors that are down here in my palette. And all I do is I grab here in the middle, yank to the corner, and there's my glowing ball. Neat. In a lot of ways, people sometimes think that the Photoshop ones actually look smoother in the transitions, but if once you get it into InDesign or Illustrator and you realize it's not the right color, I got to keep coming back to this one and making some kind of adjustment. So that same feature is actually in InDesign. So I'm going to recreate this thing right here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw a rectangle that's going to fit my page. And I can either try to draw the box to hit the page, or I'm just going to cheat and come up here and say the top left corner should be at 0, 0. And this is turned off. The width should be 8.5 by 11. So now I've got a box that's that size. Now I'm going to come on down here and I'm going to make sure that I've added my colors to the palette. They're right here. And I'm going to come in here and pull up and go to color, and I'm going to pull down on gradient. And it's going to pop this up. I've already got it set, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this particular fill off, or set it to be like it would come like from the factory, which in this case would be black to white. So when I come in here, it would probably be looking something like that if I did nothing else to it. So I've got my colors in my palette, I've drawn my box, and I've pulled open my gradient palette. I'm going to move this right over here. What I need to try to do now is grab my darker color and pull it up and let it go on top of this little square. So it replaces there, and then I'm going to go ahead and get my lighter color, and I'm going to pull it to let it go at that end. And now I've got my light to dark. So again, in some ways, maybe this is easier as far as you're concerned in Photoshop. Sometimes you get kind of a ringing effect, but that more than likely is just going to show up here on the screen in InDesign. Once you save it as a PDF, that generally smooths itself out. I can come in and make some adjustments on this thing as well. Just like in Photoshop, I would normally grab, and how much the blend goes is based on how far I pull that particular tool, from here to there, or only from here to here. In this case, I've got this tiny little mark here in the middle, so I could adjust this. So if I move this thing from the middle to be right here, like the light is here and it's almost quickly fades to the dark, or I could pull it all the way over here to the edge in this direction. I don't know why it's not wanting me to go bigger chunks at a time, but if I kept pulling it over to here, it would be pretty much light and the dark would only be at the corners. So I do have some ability to adjust that right here. So that's how I end up making that here in InDesign. Again, I make sure that I have my color swatch palette open. I've drawn my rectangle to fill this thing in. I've gone up to window and I've gone to my color and made sure that my gradient palette was open, and then I drag, which generally when you open this up after it resets, it'll always be white to black. I move around, then I drag these things to replace the specific colors that I want. And then if I want, I can adjust this right here in the middle. So pretty simple, just slightly different. If for some reason I didn't want that to be a radial fill, I could easily change this to be a linear fill. And in this particular case, it's going from light to dark here on the side. Well, if I change the angle just by experimenting, 90, now it's dark to light. Or if this was, I guess, 180, it would flip over to here. So I suppose that means that 270 in this case would be light at the top to dark here. So I'm not really pulling my tool like I do in Photoshop to get the radial or the linear blend to change. I'm doing it all in this palette by typing in numbers and things like that. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same. get back to